Hey friends, in this video I wanted to go over some of the conceptualization process that I have for my paintings, and then ultimately show you how I go from drawing to finished product. This sketchbook here has a lot of the thumbnail sketches, the prelim drawings that I do before I even start to look for reference or get detailed. And as you can see, most of them are rough, and here's what I ended up before I ended up drawing the final piece. But the roughness is something that is necessary, and I can't really overstate how crucial the thumbnail stage is for pretty much all of my work. If you're familiar with my paintings at all, you know that I tend to add a lot of detail. Some areas are rough, some areas are very refined, and the organization of it all in terms of how I hope to direct the viewer's eye and where I think about lighting and contrast and focal points and all that sort of stuff, that all really begins at the thumbnail stage. So even though those are very loose, they are crucial. I should mention that this painting is ultimately going to be in a group show at Modern Eden Gallery in San Francisco. And it's a portrait show, but there's also a subplot of mythology, which is something I don't really put too frequently in my paintings. I mean, I do have a lot of symbolism and I have a lot of themes. Like right now I'm working on a palm tree cell tower that you'll see a lot in my work. Here I am using workable fixative, by the way, to seal the drawing. But this piece I wanted to have something that is portrait-esque in terms of there's a central figure that we're focusing on riding a Pegasus. But I kind of also wanted to comment on mythology in general and the idea that we all have like fantasies in our head of what reality could be. So this piece kind of touches on that a little bit as well. So here I am laying out my palette. I'll always put white, yellow, red, and blues on the side, and then I like to add a little bit of gray as well to sort of neutralize things. And when I begin painting, I always try to find kind of a theme color. So for this one, it's this kind of magenta tone, and I'll put this wash over pretty much the whole drawing. This works to really unify everything, and it kind of helps to make sure that as I'm adding new colors, things feel connected and feel cohesive. From here, I'm adding a little bit of a lighter color into the clouds, into the sky. And, you know, this works as something that, you know, kind of binds things together, but I also look at every single part of this painting as something that is under construction. So some painters I know really try to nail the color in the first try, and I do aim for that, but I also do all of these brush strokes with the knowledge that I might need to change them, I might need to lighten things up. You know, acrylic paint tends to dry about 10% darker than whatever it is laid down. So it's kind of good to have the mindset that, you know, whatever you put down, don't fully fall in love with it. Consider it as something that you can amend later on. The other thing that I really consider when I'm working with color in general is to try to think of color as value and to really try to limit myself during the painting process to just a few colors based on their values. So in this painting, I know that the purple colors are going to be some of the darker values. I'm going to also have some reds, some yellows, and that magenta in the background. And I'm going to try to utilize those colors in multiple places so that I'm not just sort of putting one color down and then moving on to the next one. I'm trying to move all over the place. And as I paint, I really think of working in multiple sections at a time, again, as a way to make sure that things are cohesive and fit together. And it helps to make the lighting consistent as well. So I know I mentioned that conceptually this is touching upon the Pegasus as a horse, and mythology in general is something that is imaginary. And so one kind of, I guess, cheeky aspect to that is just having the Pegasus drink out of the swimming pool water. there's a few other elements that I'm kind of tossing in here to sort of make you think of either nostalgia or something that is doing an impersonation of something else. Like, again, this palm tree cell tower here, which end up a lot of my paintings. The clouds themselves are a little more puffy and less realistic. The wings themselves are pristine, a little too perfect in some areas. So that's the sort of thing I'm trying to add to this as a means of discussing, perfection or the ideal, or how maybe silly it is to sort of look at the world that way. So as I'm going around adding more bright colors to the piece, adding highlights to things like the chlorine filter right here. This is another thing I like to add to paintings. I just think it's such a funny floating device. When you're painting water, you can never, really overestimate what you need to add, what you really don't need to add. I ended up adding the Burger King crown on this one because I thought it was kind of a nice little addition there to draw attention. That's also something that's a paper crown that actually does not signify royalty in any way whatsoever. And I cleaned up the edges in post. I sign it in orange right there at the bottom. And then as we'll go around here, we'll just look at some of the final details. So the piece is acrylic and colored pencil on canvas. And the dimensions are 24 by 36. A lot of reflections there in the water, a lot of details on the figure, but then some of the simple shapes, again, I'm hoping to drive home some of that fantasy aspect. Thanks for tuning in.